When you make mistakes, it's inevitable that you're going to make mistakes. Making mistakes is a part of life. The only difference is in this situation, you want to believe the illusion. You want to believe not that the nightmare you're living now is real, but that illusion of it being a real relationship and it not being this bad to be real. When that happens, you also question, maybe you were wrong about what was going on. Maybe you're exaggerating the story. Maybe it's really not as bad as you think it is. Maybe it's just the emotions and the tension and everything is so great that it's amplified everything and you're not getting a clear picture of what's going on. So you get into this point where you have to prove it to yourself. You don't want to be right, and you want to believe that maybe, like I just said before, that this isn't really what you thought it was. So, when you're in that mode, when you really want that illusion to be true, then you're more in a position to try to test yourself to see if it's actually the case. You can say things to yourself like it must be a mistake or a misunderstanding, you've just blown things out of proportion, or that it's not really what you thought it was. Then you also look into the fact that all the time that you spend in the relationship and all the time that you're going to have to spend with this person if you have kids, and you start to ask yourself, how can this all be for nothing? How can all this time and effort be completely evaporated and disappear in an instant? And now this new reality, which is a complete nightmare, is now your new reality. One of the hard parts about this is when you're starting this out and you don't necessarily know what you're dealing with, when it turns to this new mode, when the narcissist mask completely drops and all the trauma and drama is right there in front of your face, it can be overwhelming. And then you start to think, what's going on? Is this my new life? Is this the way things are going to be? So when you're in that mode, any opportunity or any chance you get to try to prove to yourself that it's wrong. In other words, if your ex is hoovering or maybe they're acting nice the way they used to be, you want to believe it. So lowering your guard down, thinking that maybe you were wrong, it's a normal thing to do. I think it's something that all of us have to do because you're just not going to be able to, in an instant, turn everything off. You still have a connection with this person, with the relationship, and to just turn it off is really hard to do. I went through the same thing. I know it seems easy when I talk about hybrid no contact and black hole thinking, but it took me a long time to get to this point. It was very difficult to get to this point. I had to put a lot of effort into it. And I fell for that trap more than once. Every time something would change or it would seem like, oh, she's being nice. She's calmed down. So, okay, so this is probably just one of those situations where people are just angry and now we're going to calm down and things will get better. Because I wanted it. I wanted that illusion. I didn't necessarily think that the relationship was going to come back and be what it was before. But I thought, oh, okay, well, maybe we can get to the point where we can have a dialogue. We can have a cordial relationship for the good of the kids and stop a lot of this extra trauma and drama. So like I said, I fell for that more than once. Every time I did, everything went back to the toxic normal. It was inevitable. Every time that I was like, oh, okay, kind of ease back into that old interaction. And as soon as it fell right back into what would have been the normal way we would interact, it would turn back into this controlling environment. So don't beat yourself up about it. You are going through something very difficult. You have a lot of reasons for wanting this to be not true. You have a lot of reasons to hope that the situation you're in is that misunderstanding and that illusion that you had, or the idea that you can actually interact with this person in a positive and constructive way. You want it so badly, so you're willing to test the waters to see if it's true. And you want to test those waters because you want your children to have a good parent. You want your children to have a relationship with their other parent. You want to have a future without all of this trauma. You want to be able to go to school functions without having anxiety attacks or post-traumatic stress disorder attacks. You want to be able to interact with the other parent like you see other people who don't have toxic relationships do. So every time that they give you an opening to where you think that maybe things are starting to change, you want to try it. And guys, wanting this and trying to keep it or to get it, it's okay, because that's normal. But when you are proven right, at some point you have to take steps to move forward. At some point you have to realize that you're dealing with somebody who is never going to change, who is not going to turn into a good parent, who is not going to be cooperative. It just isn't going to happen. And that's the reason why I talk a lot about hybrid no contact, black hole thinking, and finally, absolute thinking. And the reason absolute, and I'll finish on that, the reason absolute thinking is so important is because at some point you have to say, this is reality, like black and white. This is the way it is, and nothing will change. And the reason that's important, because when you can make that step, when they start to do things to hoover or to try to be nice or to try to suck you back in, you won't fall for it, because you have established that they are who they are. They are never going to change. And it's, if you allow them back into your inner circle, or you allow them back in, it's just going to go back to normal. But before I go, you have to prove that to yourself, okay? What I mean is you're going to have to, more than likely, you're going to have a couple of times where you do open up, where you do try to go back to that normal type of situation, and they're going to basically slap you upside the head. Now, hopefully, if you're thinking about that and you're expecting it, it won't negatively impact you. Now, what I'll tell you for me is every time it did happen to me, it negatively impacted me. It wasn't until later, like the last time, which I can't remember which one it was, the last one was, but prior to that last time where I finally just said, okay, enough is enough, it hurt. Every time I tried to open back up, or every time I tried to get to some type of cordial relationship, it degraded, and then it was like re-ripping that scab off, okay? And hopefully, if you're watching this and you're going through this right now, maybe you can look at it and go, okay, all right, I had to test it because there was a chance. And if there's a chance, maybe I have to do it. And it's played out the way unfortunately, the way I thought it would. And then maybe if you're dealing with it in that situation, maybe it won't be as painful. It's still going to be painful, but maybe it won't be as painful. Bottom line is, guys, what you're going through is normal in these situations. And I don't know, when I say normal, I know that's probably a little frustrating because, there's nothing about this that's normal. What I mean is it's a pattern of behavior that plays out over and over again. It played out for me, it's playing out for you, it's playing out for the next person. It's the way it is. But until you have experienced it enough to where you realize what you're dealing with, you're going to have to try. And there's, like I said, there's nothing wrong with that. So when you make those mistakes, when you feel like you've failed again, you haven't. You were trying to do the best thing you could or you can for your situation and for your kid's situation to try to make things better. At some point, like I just said, you're going to have to accept the reality. And when you do that, and just make appropriate steps to deal with it. Once that starts happening and then they can't get back into you, and you don't play that mental game with yourself trying to second guess yourself, it starts to get a lot easier. So if you have anything you want to add in the comments below about how you've been dealing with this type of situation and how it's been really hard and what you've done to help yourself whenever you do basically fall back and try to see if the other person will be different, put it in the comments below. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up. If you like the channel, please subscribe, and I will chat with you guys in the next video. Take care.